Green check marks all across the board. How you doing, John?
Good. How are you, Craig?
Good. I'm trying to get rid of that little flare that seems to
Oh,
be
yeah.
coming. So I got this little sticky note right above my camera to get rid of it, but it doesn't seem to be doing the job.
Hmm.
All right. Um, we got a lot to talk about today. There's some interesting stuff,
Yeah.
definitely, and some familiar topics. So, welcome back to Silicon Scoop. With me, as always, is my co-host John Irwin. And what's going on, John? And we are in the dog days of August, and this will come out at the end of September, probably.
Yeah. Enjoying the cooler weather right now in August, and enjoying the fact that a lot of people are on vacation. So it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I found. And again, I'm just back from my 2 weeks off in August, which I take every year. It's just that I found that everybody goes away, and you can't get responses from people, and it's just best time to take off
Yeah.
and unplug. Which is exactly what I did. And as I got back, there were a few messages because apparently I didn't communicate it properly that I was taking my sabbatical to a couple of people. So I will
Yeah.
have to deal with that.
Oh,
Which is
good.
not a big deal, but it is what it is. And hopefully we'll get all that better. But
You
let's
know,
jump
there's
in.
this new feature that they have in emails. It's called out of office that you can send, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is 100% true. But and again, all my fault. I just want to jump into this and
Yeah.
so, hydrogen goes affordable. Scientists have just unlocked a game-changing breakthrough in hydrogen fuel cell technology. This innovation promises to make clean energy more affordable and accessible than ever before. A cheap hydrogen fuel cell system is now within reach thanks to this groundbreaking research from Kyushu University. Is that how you would pronounce it, John?
I don't know. I think so. Kyushu or Kyushu.
Their work has focused on creating fuel cells that operate at much lower temperatures while maintaining high efficiencies. Traditional hydrogen fuel cell technology has always faced one major hurdle: extreme high operating temperatures. These systems typically need temperatures between 700 and 800 degrees to function properly. This requirement makes them extremely
Celsius.
expensive and difficult to use. Pardon? Celsius.
Seven
Did
to
I say
800
Fahrenheit?
Celsius.
Yeah,
No,
sorry.
no, you didn't say anything. You just said 700, 800 degrees, but just
Yeah.
to make sure. Yeah.
So this breakthrough changes everything. Researchers have developed fuel cell systems that work efficiently at 300 degrees. This represents a temperature reduction of over 400 degrees compared to conventional systems. What's going on here, John?
Yeah. So this is cool. So, um, the new technology that you said works. So think of it like the difference between needing an industrial furnace versus a kitchen oven for this. And so let's dive into the breakthrough. So it centers on engineering what researchers call SCO6 highway. So that's within the fuel cell's electrolyte. So the ceramic layer that allows protons to travel through the device is this SCO6 highway. So in traditional SOFCs, which we've covered before, but that's solid oxide fuel cells, the protons have to navigate through this complex crystalline structure. It's like, think of it like trying to move through a crowded maze. So what the Kyushu team discovered is that by doping barium stannate and barium titanate with high concentrations of scandium, they could create dedicated pathways for proton movement. And so the scandium atoms link with surrounding oxygen atoms to form the SCO6 highway networks. And so they're essentially building express lanes for protons that are both wide and have softly vibrating structures. And that prevents the proton trapping, which is the major efficiency killer in heavily doped oxides. So I think this is a huge breakthrough. I think this is it's going to particularly benefit SOFC manufacturers who have struggled with high temperature requirements. So there's obviously a lot more development that needs to be done for this, but we're essentially at a pivotal moment in energy transition where I would say this temperature breakthrough could be the key that unlocks widespread hydrogen adoption. But I know we haven't covered too much hydrogen, but I am seeing a lot of companies, at least in the news, abandoning a lot of hydrogen technology. But what are your thoughts on this, Craig?
You've left me with a lot. What are my thoughts on them abandoning hydrogen technology? What are my
All right.
thoughts about this new scandium
So what
based?
I meant was, what are your thoughts? Is this a potential for hydrogen to become more mainstream, or are companies still? Do you think companies are still going to keep abandoning it until we have another breakthrough?
Well, it sounds very promising, but I don't think it's promising enough. So I think we need more, and hydrogen is tough for a number of reasons, and the reason these things aren't taking off, among everything else, is there's no consumer infrastructure, just none. Like in the GTA, there's one hydrogen station where you can go and fuel up. And that depends on whether they're using fuel cells or this, and there's no standardization between car manufacturers on some of these things. So you have to all this stuff slows down adoption if they don't standardize and they don't build the infrastructure, and someone's got to make the investment. And who is that going to be?
Yeah, it's got to be the government, in my mind, because who else is kind of neutral in this, right? Or it's got to be a company that's going to take a risk.
Yeah, and so that's the thing. If I can't go, find a hydrogen station within 5 kilometers of my house, it's not happening.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is a great breakthrough. This could enable hydrogen fuel cells for powering homes. Like, this could enable it more mainstream. I don't know if this is mainstream, and here's the thing though, right? I don't know if do we need infrastructure for cars first and then the homes will be adopted for fuel cell technology, or is it two separate things?
They're two separate things. Let's jump back to this for a second. This is interesting. I like lowering it, but we're still way too high temperature wise, 400 degrees or so Celsius. Do we know what the cost of introducing scandium is into this process?
I couldn't find it, no.
Because hydrogen is expensive, and this brings it down because it doesn't have to be as hot, but it's very volatile. And we talked about this a while ago. Now, Walmart in Ontario, they committed to buying a bunch of hydrogen-based trucks to ship stuff around. Now, the expectation from my end is going to be, well, there has to be an infrastructure to fuel those trucks. And if Walmart is going to make the investment in the trucks, I would assume they'd make the investment in infrastructure at some of their warehouses or stores to fuel the trucks. And that might be, an impetus to have these hydrogen charging stations at Walmarts, for example. And as soon as that starts to happen, if you can charge your hydrogen vehicle at any Walmart, in 5 years from now, you're going to see a huge uptick in hydrogen vehicles. So it has to be a infrastructure play, and it's not happening at the consumer level. It has to happen at, like that industrial level where it makes sense when I have a fleet of trucks for me to be able to build this infrastructure, because it's going to save me money and environment over this period of time. The problem is the cost of this needs to come down from a production, from a shipping point of view. The energy it takes to create it needs to be less, because it's still at a point where it takes more energy to create than hydrogen gives off in the transition. So we're losing stuff. So that's why we have green hydrogen, where we're using solar and wind and whatnot to create the hydrogen, especially during off hours when those things aren't power is not being used peak. But we still have a lot of heaps to follow. But the infrastructure is the big thing. Now, there are cars out there. There is a small market. I know there's a couple out in BC and out in California and whatnot, and people are using them. It's just, you can't actually have an industry like that when you've only got a handful of stations in a country. So that's definitely the way to go. I like where we're going with hydrogen. I honestly don't know if this is going to be the future, because it's so volatile. There's so many hurdles they seem to still need to cross, but I don't know what the other solution is, because we have gas stations right now everywhere, charging not as much, but it's coming along slowly.
Yeah.
But again, slowly. How many years have they been putting in charging infrastructures, and we're slowly getting there? If we switch to this technology, how long will it take for us to get? That's why people are hesitant, because unless this is going to be the clear winner, sinking billions in infrastructure is just going to be throwing it away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like the thing is like the global hydrogen fuel cell market, it's experiencing some growth right now. Or in 2024, it was valued at 9 billion. And this is crazy. I didn't know this until I started doing research. Do you know what it's projected to reach? 34 to 37 billion by 2033, which is essentially a compound annual growth rate of about 15 to 22%. But here's the kicker, and this is where North America's fallen behind, is it's driven by certain governments like Japan, South Korea, Germany, and even California, which I know I said North America's behind, but like California is a different a different nut when it comes to this stuff. I know they have a decent infrastructure for hydrogen, or at least they did when we first started covering hydrogen. I don't know what it's like now, but yeah, I think that this technology, this advancement, as well as the continued advancements, is going to make it easier. As far as infrastructure goes, maybe we can just add a hydrogen tank for now at these gas stations and put it into the ground once they get the technology where you can store it like that. But who knows?
Yeah, they'll have to figure it out. I'm sure, obviously, we have pumping stations in places, so they've figured out like what it takes. I don't know if you can just stick it in a hole in the ground, because the moment it contacts with oxygen, boom. So we have to special requirements there. But I'm curious to see that report on growth, where the growth is coming from, because I think there are more hydrogen air vehicles, hydrogen drones, hydrogen other things before it gets to consumer level. When the airports start having hydrogen tanks for airplanes, this is what I mean by the bigger infrastructure that pays off first, then it gets rolled out. So I think it is growing, because we talked about hydrogen planes, we talked about hydrogen drones, we talked about all these other hydrogen vehicle type things. So it's definitely an area of interest. It's an area of growth, but I think it's growing at the industrial level, not at the commercial level. So it's going to be a while before we see it.
Yeah. And sorry, I just found this. So California, they've committed to funding for 100 hydrogen refueling stations by 2025. And Europe is building a hydrogen backbone network across multiple countries. So
it is 2025. I bet you'll find in California, because they seem to not be able to get anything done, that they haven't built them. There's probably a handful, and that's it. It's like they were supposed to build those charging centers across the country, 800,000 or 8,000 of them. They built 4, for 8 of them. Like, government doesn't know how to do these things. It's not a specific California government, or I think you need business to start looking at deploying this stuff, because government is very inefficient and just can't do it.
So currently they have 62.
Oh, there you go.
They're projected to have 87 by the end of the year. So not the 100, but hey, it's better than 4 or 5, right?
Which is interesting, because of their EV mandate. Where does this fit? Which is always wondered. Like, I thought the EV mandate, and we both, I think, felt this way, was a thoughtful step in a direction, but a wrong direction, saying, great, we want to force EVs to reduce carbon, when we should be just saying, let's reduce carbon because hydrogen is a solution, because EV, there's these other solutions. And hopefully that they've included this in that. So we'll have to see. So we'd love to hear what other people think. You out there, let us know what you think about this hydrogen situation. And would you be driving a car? Do you see the infrastructure? Do you see that happening in your area, wherever that happens to be? Again, in Mississauga, there's a couple in the GTA, and that's it. What kind of population do you need to see for you to buy a hydrogen vehicle? Love to hear back from you.
Hmm.
The tech world witnessed an unprecedented move when Perplexity AI became the center of stunning acquisition to buy Chrome. Perplexity, a 3-year-old startup led by CEO Aravind Srinivas.
I don't know.
I love how you just leave me out there every time there's
No,
anyway, Perplexity CEO shocked the industry with an unsolicited all-cash offer for $34.5 billion to acquire Google's flagship Chrome browser. The staggering figure becomes even more remarkable compared to Perplexity's own $14 billion valuation. What's going on here, John?
Yeah, so let's talk about kind of why this matters, right? So think about this. It's crazy because if you think about this, it's like a 3-year-old company offering to buy the Golden Gate Bridge, essentially. Like, and the reason why this matters is because Chrome, it's not just a browser. It's the gateway to the internet for over 3.5 billion people, which is about 68% of all web users. So we've covered this before, but Google's currently facing a major antitrust lawsuit where the government might force them to sell Chrome because they've been ruled an illegal monopolist. So Perplexity saw this opportunity and essentially said, we'll take it off your hands for $34.5 billion in cash, which is more than twice what their valuation is of $18 billion. The twist, though, in this is that Perplexity just launched their own AI-powered browser called Comet last month, and I still haven't had a chance to play with it. But it's designed to completely reimagine web browsing with AI. So instead of typing searches and clicking links, you can have conversations with your browser and ask it to do things like booking restaurants, summarizing emails, researching topics across. So it isn't just about buying a browser. It's about potentially reshaping how 3.5 billion people interact with the internet in the age of AI. But the thing with this is that they gave Google a 72-hour deadline, and I haven't heard anything since from it. So 2 questions to you. What are your thoughts on this? And did you find anything on the deadline?
I haven't found anything on the deadline, but I will be following up with this. They definitely are punching above their weight. And this sounds very similar to the bid they made for TikTok not too long ago, and nothing ever happened of that. But I think, TikTok hasn't been forced to sell where we're expecting a Chrome, Google to be forced to sell Chrome. I think there's a larger piece here where Chromium is the base of most common browsers out there today. It's based on Chromium, which, is the back end for Chrome. And there's this infrastructure and organization that is built to maintain that. So what's Perplexity or whoever's commitment to maintain that moving forward? I think that needs to be discussed from this point of view. And I think it's going to have to be taken a look at seriously by the FCC or whoever regulates these things when whoever comes along to buy it, to make sure we're not just trading one monopoly for another.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. Like, Perplexity is committing to maintaining Chromium as an open source, which is a critical promise because given, like you said, Chromium underpins Microsoft Edge, Opera, and other ones, right? So their approach is trying to, and also I think Comet is also built on Chromium. So I think they're just trying to get access to that market is what they're trying to do is in this bid. And that market is valuable.
Oh, absolutely. And getting rid of Chrome, the Chrome divestiture, would fundamentally disrupt Google's advertising, search, and AI product distribution strategies worldwide. And Perplexity's Comet browser illustrates possibility of an always-on capabilities beyond simple add-on integration. So if they're in charge of Chromium, they can start building AI first into the back end of the product. The problem is, if you're another company, what's going to stop you from building your stuff into the back end of this product, which got Google in the kind of in this hot mess in the first place, saying, hey, everyone who uses Chrome needs to use our search. But now you're saying anyone who uses Chrome that needs to is Perplexity on the back end as an example. Isn't that the same problem?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they'll go there or they'll do that. And when I say, Google put a lot of money into Chromium, and I don't know if Perplexity is prepared to spend the kind of money it takes in order to do that, just because they don't have the kind of revenue Google does. Yeah. I'm a little concerned because it is a 3-year-old company, and it's punching way over its weight. What does an acquisition like this do to a company?
Well, let's talk about this. So let's talk about the financial engineering behind this. So it's actually a sophisticated VC structuring that exceeds traditional startup funding models. So like we said, Perplexity's $18 billion valuation. Despite that, there's multiple sources that confirm that several investors, including large VC funds, have agreed to back the transaction in full. And this is crazy. It represents a new model of venture-backed strategic acquisitions, where investors are willing to fund deals that exceed the acquiring company's own valuation. So they're betting on transformational market positioning rather than traditional asset acquisition. And the financing structure, it likely involves a combination of debt financing, equity participation from existing investors like SoftBank and NVIDIA, and potentially new strategic investors who see Chrome acquisition as providing unparalleled distribution advantages. So this is, again, another unprecedented kind of thing, which is, I think it's kind of cool. I've always liked Perplexity. Now that Claude 4.1 is out, I've been using that a little bit more, and Perplexity a little less. But I'm super excited to try their browser to see how that actually works. But yeah, I doubt this will go through, but it's cool to see them thinking outside the box for this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they committed to invest $3 billion over the next 2 years to support the open source foundation that powers Chrome. But again, that's over 2 years, right? So because this company is fairly young, what does that mean for Chromium over long term if they decide that, this is costing us too much money? I just, I take a step back and, who are they financially stable enough to be the trustee for this system that currently powers the internet?
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing I'm concerned about, I like Perplexity as an AI company, and we talk about it all the time, but Perplexity is valued at $14 billion. What happens when they, spend $35 billion on something that's valued at well over $50 billion or $60 billion? Because DuckDuckGo owes $50 billion valuation suggests there's a market discrepancy in the pricing between what Perplexity is offering and what Chrome is worth. But when you buy something that is so much bigger than your company, how does that change your company? Does Perplexity AI still exist as it is, or does it just get swallowed up on this bigger thing that's going to make so much more money?
Well, I think they're already pivoting. They're focusing on this Comet browser, so they're still going to be an AI. They're just going to be more in your face AI, like more readily accessible and agentic AI.
Yeah, of course. I guess that's not what I'm saying. Everyone's focusing on the browser. I'm saying when the search and the market for Chrome, then that whole thing is worth so much more than your company. Don't get me wrong. You're going to integrate AI. Are you now Chrome instead of Perplexity browser just because it's worth billions and driving the revenue, and this thing becomes, what I'm saying? It's just whole, you're buying a company that potentially that makes so much more money than you, that's so much bigger, that has so much more, needs so much more employees and so many more than you are today. That might be like 10 times the size just from what does that do to Perplexity? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a good question. And we don't know because this is unprecedented, right? But it's a good question to ask. And obviously this, I would say there's a 90% chance this doesn't happen, 95 even 99. because Google's still fighting this antitrust, right?
Yeah, and for all the reasons I mentioned, one, there'll be other bidders. I think Perplexity is just biding the news cycle and letting people know we have financial backing, we're strong, we can go out and take a market if we need to.
Yeah.
Because to me, looking on the outside, as similar with the TikTok, this is a lot of noise and not really a serious bid, because it sounds like it's undervaluation of the product. They're not being forced to sell yet. There are other way bigger players that'll come up and step out of the woodwork and say, we'll pick it up for more or for less or whatever. So we'll have to see. But it just feels like this will never happen because it's undervalued and all the other regulatory things that maybe they're not financially strong enough to be the steed. Like I said, we want to make sure this company is going to be around for the next 25, 50 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Are they the keeper of this? So I think, they bid early, they make the news before anybody else does. And so they splash across the headlines, and that's great. They have more investment, more people are interested, their valuation goes up based on all this stuff, and the CEO is doing his job.
Yeah. And to put this into perspective for those, like, another perspective is just imagine if a promising food truck company offered to buy McDonald's. That's essentially what we're looking at. Like the Golden Gate, I was like, you can't really connect with that. Like, think about a food truck trying to buy McDonald's. That's what this is. And this is, I think, like, it's impressive, but yeah.
And with, other people valuating it at over 50 billion, there's at least a 15 billion discrepancy there. But you're also making the offer before the court comes down and forces them to do stuff, which may reduce the value, which may reduce. So, they're hitting at an interesting time, but I still don't think there's a chance in hell of this happening. And I still think that someone is just going to come up and buy Perplexity rather than them buying out of something else.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this Perplexity offer to buy Chrome for $35 billion, or the future of their Comet browser. And is Perplexity just playing a game here, or are they serious about these super acquisitions they keep trying to do? We'd love to hear your feedback. All right. AI social media experiments are revealing shocking truths about how artificial intelligence mirrors our own social behavior online. Recent studies show that when AI chatbots interact on social platforms, they develop the same polarization patterns that divide human users. This AI social media research matters because it shows us what drives division in our digital spaces. Scientists have discovered that chatbot polarization happens even without recommendations, algorithms, or targeted ads. The findings suggest that social media echo chambers form naturally through basic human-like interactions. So we're talking about scientists built a whole social network of bots and then let them go, and it turned out it was just a hate war at the end of it. Is that what's going on here, John?
Yeah, so this is crazy. So University of Amsterdam researchers, they created this methodologically sophisticated experiment using 500 AI chatbots, and it was powered by OpenAI's GPT-4o Mini. I'm curious to know what would happen with other ones, but so they, like you said, they each were assigned specific personas based on real demographic data, and this was pulled from the American National Election Studies data set. So, the personas reflected real-world distributions of age, gender, income, education, partisanships, ideology, religion, and other personal interests. So that was to ensure ecological validity. The study conducted 5 separate experiments, with each involving 10,000 actions on a deliberately simplified social media platform stripped of advertisements, recommendation algorithms, and content discovery mechanisms. So the design was crucial because it isolated the fundamental social dynamics from algorithmic manipulation. And this allowed researchers to examine whether polarization emerges from human social psychology itself rather than corporate algorithmic interference. And so um, this so without any external influences, the AI bots immediately began forming hostile tribes, creating echo chambers, and amplifying the most extreme voices among them. The most divisive partisan bots became the most popular and influential. Surprised? So the moderate voices were drowned out, and within days, the platform had devolved into exactly the kind of toxic, polarized environment we see on real social media, except this time it's entirely artificial. And the really chilling part of all this is when the researchers tried to fix the problem with various interventions, like hiding follower count, showing posts chronologically, even forcing bots to see opposing viewpoints, nothing worked. What do you think about this, Craig? Are you scared? Are you as scared as I am?
Well, I've always been saying, and you've heard me say this, 100 times, why are we training AI to think like us?
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing ever because we're emotional, we're rant, we don't worry about facts. And this is exactly what we're seeing. It's like, we need something better that's more logical, that's less emotional, that will, look at situation rather than, oh, this will really act like the human brain and put emotion into it. And now, we're seeing all sorts of things related to that, that are not good. This is one of those things. And just to clarify a point you made earlier, the research team validated their findings by testing the same experimental conditions with different AI models. Replication with alternative AI models like Llama 3.2b or 8b, DeepSeek R1 reproduced these results, underscoring the robustness of the findings. So on these other AI platforms, it also replicated this exact same thing.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, cool.
Partisan content was amplified in the stripped down environment, and the bot self-sorted into partisan clusters, reinforcing ideological divides despite exposure to diverse content. So like you said, this is what I believe and nothing's going to change my mind.
Yeah. Well,
so go ahead.
Yeah. So like this revealed a dark truth. And if I can put it in a simple term so that people can, the takeaway is that the problem with social media, it's not just the algorithms or the corporate manipulation. It's backed into the very structure of how we communicate online. And this kind of helps to bring your point home. If AI systems are trained on human data, they're automatically recreate our worst behaviors without any prompting. I guess the question is, what does that say about us as a people?
That we can never be happy, that hatred and anger is part of the human nature, and we need something not to like in our life. We need to be unhappy about certain things. There's a certain level of that we need to be.
Yeah.
And robots feel the same way. They feel, obviously, when trained on our data where we react a certain way, they're going to want to react like us rather than being fed to saying, hey, you can take this political side or this side on this issue or that side. You like soft lumber versus, coal for heating, and you think the coal people are evil and the soft lumber people are great. I'm just picking something that hopefully isn't going to cause us conflict. That's why I say,
yeah.
And so you hate them for all sorts of various reasons because you see them as affecting your industry or what have you, or, polluting or what, and you're stuck in that. No matter what you see, it's lies and propaganda because lies and propaganda exist. So instead of taking a step back, researching the facts and responding, and wait a minute, I've done my research. You are right in this area. I am right in this area. And we kind of meld this and we say, there's not a lot of difference in the pollution given off by coal and soft lumber when burning based on this, blah, blah. So maybe we're both wrong and can reach a better conclusion. That won't happen. Rather, today we have a society where if you disagree with me, I hate you and you're evil, rather than, we grew up in a time where we challenge thoughts, where we would be what we call the devil's advocate. You believe something, I'd take the other side and we'd have a conversation whether I believe the other side or not, it's just you walk away with a better understanding of all aspects of it, and you've had a good conversation. Nowadays, just having that conversation seems to be hate speech, and the bots are picking up on that. So what does that tell us about us? It says that we're very hateful. And, I'm surprised that we're not blowing each other up all over the place.
Yeah. And there was some research that they identified this Pravda network. I don't know if you heard of this, it's a collection of Russian propaganda websites and social media accounts that engaged in this is crazy. LLM grooming with the potential intent of inducing AI chatbots to reproduce Russian disinformation and propaganda. And I'm not surprised, but yeah, just to kind of bring that to the surface. So, like,
let me take a step back.
Yeah.
Do you believe for a second the U.S. isn't doing that? I'm not trying to be political one way or the other, or any of the other.
I believe they're doing it. I believe every country's doing it,
and I believe every top tier company that's making a enterprise, whatever, is doing the same thing. Their AI is the new SEO, so you gotta propagandize the AI to show your product is better, your political side is better, this is the better thing. So all of that is being fed into these AI, which is leading to all this conflicting information or these political sides, rather than there are better answers, and let's move towards a better, peaceful, more climate friendly, breathable air place at peace where we're more productive rather than killing each other.
Yeah.
So when you train it on our social networks, they're bad, but they're here, and I'm a very believer in free speech. So I'm glad that X exists as it is, but let's face it, it can be a huge cesspool for anything.
Absolutely.
So you get both. So when you start training data on social media where anybody can respond to anything, and not only that, people love to troll. There's so many people on there. It's just, I'm looking for someone to insult today, and they just scroll around and just insult people, and that's what they do. And so now the bots are picking up on that thing because people think it's funny, and it is funny on certain aspects, and it isn't on others. So is it bullying? Is it trolling? Is it what have you? But we're training the bots to do our bad behavior, and I think that's bad. And I think we need to take a step back and say, why are we want to perpetuate this emotionally unstable thought process rather than logical thought through ones?
Yeah, we need to have an underlying training that trains the AI bots to avoid that at all costs, kind of thing, right? But kind of like one of the 3 rules, like add a 4th rule. I don't know.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I'd be interesting to see if they start doing these types of experiments with any types of new technology coming out, to see what will happen when you put human type interaction in these new products, in these new social networks, in these new things, to see if people are doing these types of testing, which I would be doing, not for this, but to figure out what's growth, what activates users, what makes things happen. And then I would be using bots in that network to interact with people. And that's why we're getting to, is more than 50% of the internet bots now? And is it a botnet, or are there people still out there?
Yeah, it's tough to see.
We'd love to know your thoughts on these AI social media, and should we be training AI to act unhuman on social media behavior? Do you think as a human species there's just too much hate inside us, or do you think something else is going on? What do you think about this study? We'd love to hear your feedback. The world of artificial intelligence hardware just experienced a groundbreaking revolution. Cornell University researchers have successfully developed the world's first microchip brain. Cornell University research has successfully developed the world's first microwave brain chip, a revolutionary low-power silicon microprocessor that completely reimagines how computers think and process information. This innovative microprocessor represents a fundamental shift from traditional digital computing. Instead of relying on conventional digital logic, this cutting-edge technology harnesses the power of microwave physics to create a new paradigm in AI processing.
Yeah.
What's going on here, John?
Yeah, so this new chip, think of it like it processes information more like how our brains work. So everything happens all at once. So in parallel, using natural physics of microwaves, and instead of converting radio signals to digital data and then processing them, this chip can understand and respond to radio signals directly while they're still in microwave form. It's so fast, it can operate at tens of gigahertz. I don't know how fast the chips are now, but I remember like 5 gigahertz, things like that. So I'm not sure they got much faster. They just got more efficient, I think. But that's billions of cycles per second. That's so much faster than most digital processors now. It also uses less than 200 milliwatts of power, which is about the same as a bright LED light bulb. To put this into perspective, a typical smartphone processor uses several watts and can't directly process radio signals at these speeds. And what's crazy about this all is it can do multiple jobs at once. So it can decode radio signals, track radar targets, classify data patterns, and even detect security threats in wireless communications all in real time. It's like having like this super powered antenna that can also think about what it's receiving, which I think is really cool. And we're talking applications here, right? They're endless. So you can have a smartwatch that can process AI locally without connecting to the cloud. You can have security systems that can instantly detect unusual radio activity, or radar systems that can identify and track multiple objects simultaneously without massive computing power. Like you said, it's a fundamental departure from neural network implementations, which is super cool. And I'm curious to get to know what your thoughts on this are, Craig, because this is cool.
This is really cool. And as you look into it, it's backed by DARPA, which isn't a surprise because this looks like it has military applications all over the place. Specifically, when we talk about, I think last week we talked about the infrared countermeasures from the Chinese AI, where they're scanning on the pilot and the plane at such a fast rate they can determine what the pilot's going to do before he's going to do it and counter it.
Yeah.
So when you now say, okay, we got these faster, lower powered, on the fly that can react faster and faster and faster, we're going to see more and more military applications. But I'd like to see these things in cars for anti-collision detection, among other things, so they can communicate with each other a little bit better from a car-to-car communication point of view. So, that traffic and whatnot can go better. I think there's so many applications for this type of technology that it's going to be interesting to see if this actually takes off or not. Like right now, they have some problems with errors. Like it's only 88% accurate before we start needing error correction and whatnot. But this is early days, and this is microwave. What other technologies out there, once you start building wave technology into chips, where it's communicating at this different level? What else could we do with this?
Yeah, and it's like. So the other thing too is it's very sensitive, so it requires careful calibration. But again, we're talking a prototype design, right? That has actually been tested, and this is awesome because up until now we've been converting these analog signals to digital signals, right? And I love that the team took the approach of, well, why don't we just work in the analog space? And it makes so much sense when you actually think about it, because you're eliminating 2 steps. You're eliminating the conversion from analog to digital and digital to analog, right?
Yeah. And, building computation and communication in one chip dissolves traditional hardware boundaries that, all of a sudden things become so much easier. Chips versatility spans radio decoding, radar tracking, anomaly detection applications. Microwave interference enables massively parallel real-time computations with low energy demand. This might allow for way more multitasking than we have. And we're talking about, again, edge devices potentially, so they can react in real time without needing a cloud. So anything that needs to make decisions on the fly without checking back, this kind of thing could take advantage of.
Yeah, no, this is it's cool. And the other thing that we didn't touch on, it's built on standard CMOS, which means it can scale with existing semiconductor manufacturing, unlike these other exotic neuromorphic approaches, which require specialized fabrication. So this has the potential to scale and commercialize pretty quick.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
If they can address the sensitivity and the error, right?
Yeah, and it's definitely fewer specialized chips overall will reduce complexity and cost and points of failure. They just have to ramp up, the error correction and performance to some degree to get this integrated. And I don't know what this means from what kind of operating system will be needed to run this, but I'm sure that just comes along with the system.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's multiple, for the challenges, they see multiple pathways for improving accuracy and scalability. So what they're thinking about doing is adding more tunable parameters, reducing on-chip component counts, and connecting arrays of MNNs for richer spectral features. And so they also are envisioning training methods. So those will jointly optimize the slow control sequences and the back-end model, which could potentially enable a kind of a waveband agnostic neural processor, which could span from millimeter wave frequencies down to narrowband communications, which is pretty friggin' cool.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear what you think about this microwave brain chip and its potential to reshape AI hardware. Let us know what you think. And remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment below. I want to jump to this next one because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
And I think this is the one to share.
I'm surprised you didn't go with the Apple one, but that's okay.
Well, I think this one is the Apple. We always talk about Apple. We don't talk about carbon butter.
Yeah, carbon butter. I love it. Let's go.
All right. So the world is facing a food crisis that demands bold solution as our planet struggles with climate change and growing populations. We need sustainable food alternatives that can reduce our environmental impact without sacrificing taste or quality. Carbon butter represents a groundbreaking innovation that could change everything we know about dairy products. Developed by Savor, this revolutionary lab-grown butter mimics traditional dairy butter using only carbon and hydrogen molecules. This dairy-free butter substitute offers the same taste, texture, and cooking properties as conventional butter while dramatically reducing environmental impacts. Yeah. So what makes this sustainable butter alternative more compelling is the backing of tech mogul Bill Gates. His investment in this carbon neutral butter technology highlights the serious commercial impact that reinforces confidence in this emerging sector of Bill Gates' food investments. Yeah. What do you think about this?
Yeah. So before you start thinking, ew, butter from carbon, think about it this way. So traditional butter comes from cows that eat plants, which plants, they get their carbon from the air through photosynthesis. So what Savor has done, they've essentially cut out the middleman, the cow and the plant, and they've gone straight to the source. So they take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and hydrogen from water, then use heat, pressure, and chemistry to build the exact same fat molecules that make up dairy butter. And so this result, it looks, it smells, and cooks and tastes just like regular butter because chemically speaking, it is the same butter. Just the difference is in how it's made. So instead of requiring acres of farmland, tons of feed, waters for cows, and all the environmental costs of dairy farming, this butter is produced in a facility about the size of a warehouse. And talk about, like, if we're talking about environmental impacts, this is staggering. There was something about like the farts of cows and how they contribute to global warming and stuff like that. But anyways, traditional farming, it does account for significant greenhouse gas emissions. It requires massive amounts of land and water and contributes to deforestation. Saber's process produces zero greenhouse gas emissions, uses virtually no land, and requires a fraction of the resources. So they're already working with high-end restaurants and bakeries, and they're planning to launch chocolates made with their butter for this holiday season 2025, which is super cool. I want to try it. What do you think about this? Would you try it?
Well, I'd try it, I think, but
are you skeptical?
I am skeptical. Like I'm skeptical. Like all these things, I can't believe it's not butter. Well, I can. It doesn't taste like butter, so we'll see. But also,
that was margarine.
Yeah, but they, you say that was margarine. Fine. What about Beyond Meat? What about all the fake meat? There was Beyond Meat, and there was another one, Absolute. I don't know.
Impossible.
Yeah, Impossible. They've lost so much money and so much market share because it turns out, no one wants this stuff long term, that it's more unhealthy than, eating anything else, and that it's all chemical and stuff. And eventually they were the height of everything, and now they're gone. This is gonna, I feel, fall that same place. Now, having said that, let's talk about that. It uses 1,000 times less footprint compared to dairy farming practices. So there's a lot to be said about if we can use carbon to eliminate reliance on, cattle grazing to feed crops or vast agricultural infrastructure entirely. Like if we have too much carbon and this is a use for it, sure. The problem is that, we don't know what the long-term effects of this don't they say that, ingesting carbon is, increases your likelihood of getting cancer by thousands of %.
But you're not ingesting carbon, you're ingesting butter.
Yeah, butter made from carbon. So I'm just saying, I sit back and it seems to me that there's some stuff that needs to be figured out health and safety wise. Again, I try it for my own efficacy, but I feel that, there's nothing wrong with butter from a cow, but at the same time, maybe there is. Maybe I need to, as we talked earlier, maybe I need to rethink around. Whenever you're telling me that the farmers are destroying the planet, I have to sit back and say, I wonder where that thoughts come from, because I look out in the city and see there's everything else is destroying the planet, and I see the farmers are the ones that are actually keeping the land active and back to what it was. But when you start talking strip farming and you start talking about industrial age and you start talking about all these things, life changes. And we all start talking about how many billion people in the world? And
6 billion,
we need to figure out how to feed them. We need to figure out how to do a bunch of other things. And I take a step back. It's okay. We also want to travel to other worlds. Is there carbon on Mars that we can use to create some food and products there from? So there are interesting ideas here that are both positive and negative. I'm interested in the idea. I wouldn't mind trying it, like I said, but I don't think I would be anywhere near the first people. I wouldn't be buying this on any regular basis anytime soon.
Let me just leave you with this. You talked about, I can't believe it's not butter. This is not about making fake butter, because it's about making real butter without the cow, the farm, or the environmental impact. They're identical molecules to dairy butter. They're just assembled through industrial chemistry rather than biological processes. And I'm guessing the problem you have is the industrial chemistry that they're using.
Yeah, and let's be honest, they're all liars.
True.
Oh, it's all natural, it's all good for you, it's all whatever.
Yeah.
So I just say
I want Bill Gates involved, so yeah.
I want to see some studies. I want to see the long-term efficacy. That's all I'm saying. If this turns out to be good, great. But I've heard this kind of thing before where we're saying, hey, don't eat the real thing. We're going to make a fake thing and it's going to be better than the real thing. And it never turns out to be. So When I say better, it's not necessarily quality, but not better for you. There's all these other aspects, and your body doesn't necessarily digest it the same. There are 1,000 different things. So yeah, I'm not going to be the first one on the bandwagon, but I like to see alternatives. I like to see this coming out. And just because I'm a skeptic and I'll be the last one on this bandwagon doesn't mean it shouldn't be happening.
For sure.
So leave us your thoughts. Are you going to carbon butter it up? Do you trust Bill Gates in this stuff? Or, are you thinking this is another thing that you'd rather stay away from? Let us know what your thoughts are. You jumping on the carbon butter bandwagon, or this is another thing you can pass on? We'd love to hear what you think. So what do you got going on, John?
Yeah, so coming out end of September, definitely gearing up for Elevate. I know you're a partner with Elevate, aren't you, Craig?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So definitely we'll be doing something during the Elevate week, probably a Flowgrammer event, if nothing else. They're a partner of ours. Definitely go out and check it out. There's a lot of great events going on related to Elevate. That's why I said great events, sessions, program. Check out their schedule. Check out all the different lines of programs and stuff. There's always good things there. So definitely go check out Elevate. And check out Toronto Starts for our startup investor drinks, and our Flowgrammer events where we help people learn how to automate things in their business. And John, if people need funding, where do they go?
Yeah, come find me on LinkedIn. I just posted some news about the Shred program, but come find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and we'll set up, we'll talk and see if it makes sense to find some non-dilutive funding for you.
Really appreciate everyone taking their time to watch or listen to this week. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.